Welcome to my cough. Had that cold and flu bug. Everybody says, well, it's going around. The flu's going around. I hear this all year long. It's just a cop-out by saying that. But in this city, in Los Angeles, this past 3 weeks, there's been an epidemic of flu.
Yeah.
Really
And by the way,
bad.
these flu types are different every time. You know, they change. It's not the same one as last year or the year before. You know, in fact, a lot of the antibiotics don't even work.
Don't even work. You get a flu shot, it doesn't help at all.
Right. Well,
I've been taking antibiotics for this, and I do feel better, but and I rarely get sick. But having pneumonia a couple of years ago, my lungs are susceptible to this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it gives me a sexy voice, and that's all that matters.
Yeah.
All right. Like I said, welcome to my cough, but welcome to Rick's Corner. I have Doug Brignole back, and we're going to talk a little bit about 3 muscle groups, which some people are kind of in the dark about, and they don't really work them. Number 1 is forearms.
Right.
Now, you'll see people that have gigantic forearms all full of veins and vascular and muscular, and I think, what in the world are they doing for those forearms?
You know, Phil Heath has the most monstrous forearms.
Yeah.
I mean, especially the brachioradialis is just monstrous. Well, the first thing I'll tell you is some people's forearms just grow. The endomorphs, the people with big bones, their forearms often grow without even working forearms, right? They just by holding the weight and who knows what. I mean, those of us that are ectomorphs, we have to spend extra energy on them. I will tell you that my experience has been that this kind of wrist curl, which works this muscle group called the forearm flexors, these are called the forearm extensors, that's the one that's worth doing. But this one is not worth doing.
I don't even feel that at all.
I feel it, but if you look at an anatomy chart, or even if you look at Phil Heath, the biggest muscle on the back of the forearm is this muscle right here that's called the brachioradialis.
Yes, it is.
And that doesn't even cross the wrist. So for you to do this is ridiculous because it goes from here, literally it starts right there, and it goes up, crosses the elbow, ties over here.
All right.
It is an assistant to the bicep.
So what you're going to say is you need to do reverse curls.
Hammer curl.
Hammer curls.
And the reason I say hammer and not reverse is because they've done studies. They've done these EMG studies, and they actually found the brachioradialis works less during reverse curls than it does during hammer curls. Apparently that wrist position is the best position to engage the brachioradialis. So that's the one you should do for that muscle. In fact, I think that's the exercise you should do for the bicep too.
Okay.
I think most of your energy, 3/4 at least of your energy for biceps should be with a hammer grip.
I never realized that. I use them and I do like them.
Yeah, I mean, it is the way we stand. It is the natural way for us to stand.
Yeah.
Once you turn your wrist up like this, you rotate the brachioradialis out of participating as much.
Yeah, it's left out of the party.
And it's now, some people think, doesn't it actually change the shape of the bicep? No, it does not change it. That's going to be genetically determined. But you get a bigger percentage of bicep work when the brachioradialis isn't participating as much.
Yeah.
Right? What I was going to say is, when you're doing a reverse wrist curl, one of the things that's so hard about that is, like right now, as my forearms are parallel to each other, you can see that my grip is not, I can't turn my wrist far enough.
No.
Right? So this one's going this way and this one's going this way.
And you can't use an easy curl bar that way because it won't work like that.
Well, you can if you get it right, but you have to strap in. Otherwise, it starts slipping in your fingers, and then it makes it even worse.
Yeah.
Right? And after years and years and years of having done reverse wrist curls with an easy curl bar, relatively heavy, I can honestly say it didn't change my forearms very much. Right? It just, those muscles are very small. Look at an anatomy chart, you'll see those muscles that actually operate this movement are very, very small. They don't have much capacity for growth. Don't think you're going to get a big brachioradialis from that either. Okay, so I would say do this for the flexors and hammer curls for the brachioradialis.
Do you remember years ago that you could buy a big dowel and it had a hole and you put a rope and a weight on it and you roll when they made machines that did that?
Yeah, and then we would roll the rope up and it burned like crazy.
Yeah.
But we've discovered that burning sensation isn't correlated directly to growth.
No, but I'll tell you one thing I always noticed, and this is when I was growing up, that every mechanic that worked on my car had big forearms. There were always screwdrivers and wrenches, and now it's all tools, power tools, but they all had big arms.
Although I would almost wonder about that. It's almost like, people say, does dancing make you long and lean? No, long and lean people go into dancing.
I see, okay.
Right, so I think there's something about it.
So in other words, if you have big forearms, you become a mechanic.
Sort of. I sort of think a type of guy likes mechanics.
Usually, they got strong hands.
They're usually burly guys.
Yeah.
So, obviously they work their grip. And by the way, gripping things like this.
Yeah.
Doesn't do anything for your forearm size.
That just for your grip.
Right, that's only the fingers, right? So, but you remember Joe Weider used to sell this big ring with the springs, and you put the little leather pockets on there, and you go like this, and they advertise a guy with massive forearms.
Yeah.
You know, and it says, get a grip of steel and massive forearms in 6 weeks. It's like nonsense.
When I cut these fingers off and these were healing up after I got well, I had to use that thing just to get mobility back and strengthen my hand.
That's true. Well, functionally, it's very good. I mean, squeezing a tennis ball or something like that, it's all good stuff. But I mean, it will not. And by the way, the other thing that will not make your forearms big is now you're seeing these big rubber sleeves that people are putting on barbells and dumbbells. Now, obviously, it's more meant for pulling than it is for pushing.
Yeah.
Right? Supposedly, if you're pulling something, it is, in fact, harder to grip a thicker thing than it is a smaller thing.
Yeah.
Right? So...
I know that from going to the bathroom.
I knew you were going to go there. I knew he was not going to skip that opportunity. As I was saying it, I'm thinking, don't do it. It will not make your forearms bigger, even though they may use a guy with big forearms to advertise it. It might, in fact, help your grip strength. But even there, I would say, really, well, because I've had, sometimes I use straps or hooks. If I'm using a weight that's so heavy that the weak link in the chain might be the grip.
Yeah.
And they go, why would you do that? Why waste the opportunity of working the grip? And I go, my grip is strong enough.
Well, I do that with this hand because of the missing finger.
Well, yeah.
So I have to grip something so it doesn't fall out of my hand.
Therapy is therapy, but what I'm talking about is, people have this fantasy notion of being able to have such a strong grip that they can crush somebody's hand or they can crush a beer can. Or it's like, really, when is that going to be necessary?
It's not necessary. It's
right?
Just, it's an ego thing.
My feeling is, do what's practical. What's practical is to, work things to the degree that it benefits you.
All right.
Beyond that, it's like, it just wasted energy.
What about calves?
Okay. There was a myth, and it's still out there, I suppose, that seated calves work the soleus because your knee is bent, and straight-legged calves, whether it's on a leg press or a standing or whatever, or donkeys as we used to know them, work the bigger part of the muscle, which is the gastrocnemius, because when the knee is straight, there's more stretch there. Okay, well, they've done studies now, and the studies showed that isn't true. That what determines whether the soleus is working more or less, or the gastric is working more or less, is the intensity. Okay, so if the weight is heavy, or if there's a lot of speed required, then the gastric kicks in. If it's just standing around, just balancing yourself, then the soleus plays a little bit bigger role. Yeah. Right. So it is true that when you bend your knee, you can't stretch the calf as much. Right. And for that reason, the better builder is the straight-legged or semi-straight-legged calf extension, whether it's on a leg press or on a standing machine or whatever. So I always tell people, like, I do seateds, but I do them as my warm-up, to warm up the ankle and to kind of get the blood flowing and all that. I don't use it as my builder. I just do 6 sets of 15 reps with a 45 pump plate, and that's it.
Yeah.
And I alternate that with my glute extension. So I always go back and forth. But then later, when I do my calf raises, then I go heavier, full range of motion. The biggest mistake people make on calves is that they don't even let their heel drop lower than the plate they're standing on.
Yeah, I've seen that.
It's like, why would you bother standing on a plate if you're not going to let your heels go lower than that plate? Right. The whole point is to go into a stretch. Right. And then all the way up, and pull them down. They load up the machine, whatever it is, and then they do this little bouncy thing.
Yep. I've seen it over and
there's no stretch, there's no contraction.
They'll put a ton of weight on there and do it.
That's what I'm saying.
And they don't move more than...
That would be like me taking a bunch of weight and doing this on my bicep.
I've seen people do that too.
Yeah. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying that's how dumb that is.
Okay.
Anyway, so the tibialis anterior is the muscle in the front. And, there's occasionally you see a machine that in the gym that has that works, the lifting of the foot.
Ken Waller used to do that. He used to do them with no weight, just leaning with his heels on the block and coming up with it just to get a little bit of separation in there.
Yeah, I don't think it makes much of a difference. I mean, there's some people who have that thing called drop foot, where they need to strengthen that muscle, and sometimes that doesn't even help. But if I walked into the gym when I was 16 years old and I saw Ken Waller doing these toe lifts and I saw his legs, because he was known for his legs, right? He had magnificent legs. I would say, wow, that must be the secret. But no. No,
it's really not. All right, what about abs?
Abs. Okay, well, there was an interesting study that was done not too long ago, and that they put electrodes, these EMG, on the abs, upper, middle, lower, and they tested a bunch of different exercises, and they were trying to figure out which one worked the upper, which ones worked the lower. Guess what? Turns out that the upper always works more than the lower, regardless of the exercise. It is just the way the anatomy is built. Why? Because those dividers that are called tendinous intersections, if you look at a side view of a spine and the rectus abdominis, you'll notice that the spine bends mostly right across from the upper abs, right? So it makes sense that the anatomy was designed to have this part bend more, so this part. So it is literally impossible to ever have the lower abs working more than the upper abs. It just doesn't work. It's like 100%, 70%, 60%, 50%, 40%. And it never goes lower than about 40% anyway. So here's the irony is that when someone says, I'm doing these leg raises to work the lower abs, okay? Not only does this study prove that you can't work the lower abs, we also know that the abs don't connect to the legs. So whatever's raising the legs, it isn't the abs. Someone would say, oh, no, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to also bring the tailbone up so that it's coming to the rib cage rather than the rib cage coming to the pelvis. Well, guess what? The muscle doesn't know. In other words, if you were an ab muscle and you were anchored over here, you were anchored over here, all you know is that you're pulling the two ends together. You don't know whether this end is anchored and you're going this way or this end is anchored. So abdominal contraction is like a tug of war. If you and I had a rope and you were winning, it wouldn't change the tension of the rope. If I'm winning, it doesn't change it. It's even throughout. The same thing with the abdominal muscle. Once the thing is contracted, it's going to contract and it's 100, 90, 80, 70, 60 all the time, no matter what you're doing. But it's much easier to stabilize the lower body and bring the rib cage towards the lower body than it is to stabilize the upper body and bring the pelvis up to the rib cage.
Well, let me say something though. I've always had good abs, and if I work them too much, they get really thick. You know, like sit-ups, for example, I don't do.
Yeah, right.
Anything like that where I have to really come up and crunch, it just protrudes, and I don't like it. And so I do like 100 reps every day, and I started knocking them off because I feel like my abs are pumped all the time. They just get too thick. And someone wrote in and said, that's not true. You could do 1,500 reps a day, and your abs will get small. Well, mine won't get small. No way.
Well, I disagree with him and you. There's no way that doing abs will make your abs smaller. That'll never happen.
No.
First of all, you can't spot reduce, number one.
Right.
But there's no way that muscle has much capacity for growth. It's basically a sheath. Okay, it's like the tensor fascia lata. It's like the soleus. It's just a sheath. It doesn't have much capacity for thickness. So what I usually tell people is if you have some kind of protrusion going on, there's probably something else going on. There's probably some inflammation internally. There's some distension or something going on. But the muscle itself doesn't have much capacity for growth.
Well, if you look at my old pictures, you see my abs. This top ab and one underneath was always even now.
What I'm saying is that it might appear that way.
Yeah.
But I highly doubt that is actually what's happening.
Well, I don't know because I don't know what's going on behind it.
Yeah. By the way, we were talking about origins and insertions. When you look at an anatomy book and you look up a muscle and it says the origin is this and the insertion is that, those aren't randomly assigned. The origin of a muscle is always designated as the origin because that's the more stable. The insertion is designated as the insertion because that's the more mobile. This is the origin of the side deltoid, that's the insertion. This moves to that. That doesn't move to this. All right, same thing here. Origin, insertion, this moves to this. This doesn't move to that, right? Even though the muscle doesn't really know, but when we're talking about the abs, the origin is on the pubic bone. The insertion is up here. It's meant to go toward the origin.
I see what you're saying.
It's not meant to come up this way.
But let me say one thing about raising the legs and leg raises, because I've always done leg raises. And I've always had good abs. For a while, I would do the hang straps on the chin-up bar, cross my ankles and bring my knees to my chest, 100 reps. I was sore in my abs from that sucker. That definitely made me sore.
If I punch you in the deltoid, you'll be sore in the deltoid. But that's not going to cause growth.
I'm not looking for growth.
No, but what I'm saying is that soreness isn't always the indicator of what's happening. If I squeeze like this, I'm going to get sore pecs if I do this enough. But this isn't the way to build my pecs. Okay, so what's happening during leg raises is mostly isometric tension of the abs.
Yeah, but I just want to keep them tight.
Right, but what I'm saying is that if you want to work most efficiently, you want to get the most benefit with the least amount of effort. When you're hanging from the chinning bar, your upper body is working, your hip flexors are working, you're spending a lot of energy, and you're not getting any more benefit than you'd get by just doing some flat or decline crunches. Right, so why not spend less energy and get as much benefit?
Well, number one, it puts me above the gym where I can see everybody.
Okay, and if there's a girl with a low top over there, all the more reason.
And you know what else it does? This is going to be, it has nothing to do with my abs at all, but I have frozen shoulders in my joints, and when I hang up there and I let them stretch down, it opens my shoulders up so the pain is gone.
All right, well, of course you could do that without lifting the legs.
My legs are with my body.
No, so here's the last thing I'll tell you about leg raises, which is really interesting. And by the way, you can research all this. Go to Google and look at these body parts. When you raise your legs, when you do hip flexion, that is done by a group of muscles called the hip flexors. The primary hip flexor is called the psoas. It starts on the lower spine. It starts on the lumbar. That's the origin. And it goes through your body and it connects to your femurs. Okay? And then there's a couple of other ones that also assist, but that's the primary one. So when I pull my leg up and activate that psoas is pulling from the lumbar forward. So in other words, when I lift my legs up, it's pulling this way, right? When you're doing abs, the function of the abs is spinal flexion. The opposite. This is how I flex my abs, by rounding my spine.
I got you.
If I do this, I can't flex my abs.
No, not at all.
So you're having a conflict of interest. You're having two muscles that are pulling on the spine in different directions. One wants to arch your back, one wants to flex your back, and neither one wins. So you end up getting fatigue in the abs because they're trying to keep this. What they're trying to do is trying to keep the tailbone from kicking back, because that's what the hip flexor is trying to do. So you're getting fatigue from this thing resisting that effort, but you're never getting into the kind of abdominal contraction that you'd get when you actually flex your abs.
Gotcha.
And so you end up spending a lot of energy and getting a lot less bang for your buck than you would if you just did regular crunches.
Interesting. I'll try this next week.
Assuming you have enough spinal flexion.
We talked about your book in the last show, but at least let them know where we have it, where you can get it.
It's here. This is the only print version, so please don't ask me if you can get a printed version. The printed version will come out in February or March. We're working feverishly on it. There's 900 images that we have to go through. Email me at dbfitness@aol.com, and I'll give you, point-by-point instructions. I'll even send you the table of contents, the introduction, and the endorsement page, so you see the 12 PhDs who are endorsing it, as well as Samir Banud and Lee Labrada. You can just send $50 to PayPal if you want. I'm there under dbfitness@aol.com. And then be sure I have your email address, because otherwise I won't be able to send you the link for the download.
Sounds good to me. Also remind you guys that I'm selling the Gold's Gym logo. It's the first of the year. I sold a ton at Christmas. Autographed to you, signed by me. It's the original logo. Everyone is hand-drawn separately for you, so no two are the same. And you can frame it, put it on your wall. It's a piece of bodybuilding history.
Absolutely.
And it'll be here long after I'm gone, and you'll have it with my
That's what's going to, price is going to go way up when you pass away.
It is. It is.
Not to say that you ever will, of course, because you probably never will.
But like every artist, that's what happens. You can order from my website, rickdrasin.com. It's $75 plus shipping, and I'll autograph it and send it out to you. Get allowed 7 to 10 days.
Sounds
great, Doug. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys for watching. Have a happy New Year. It's going to be a good year this year. I'm very positive about good things happening for everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
RickDrasin.com. He is the equalizer, baby. See you next time.